No, thank you so much. Let me start by commending you, Kolani, for the work that you are doing, creating this platform for all of us to exchange our views. It's certainly not a small measure. It's something that must be highly commended, I'm sure, by all of us in this room. We really thank Xaba for this initiative. And the two, it's very difficult to find fault with all the contributions that the colleagues made this evening. You were actually, saying what you think is behind the problems that the province of KwaZulu-Natal is currently facing. Some of the things may not necessarily disagree with, because as a Democrat, and we sometimes have to reflect on them, because there is value in each and every contribution that was made this evening. I must, however, just comment on in the form of a summary on some few points that colleagues made. There's a point that Kai raised in response to you, Babushange. He using his words, he says we must not try to canonize the former president, and because what I read in your presentation is that you are now starting to smell defeat. No Zuma, no win. It shouldn't be like that, and it's exactly the same mistake that the comrades in the North committed. We lost the ward in which Comrade Zuma lives. We lost it. And because they thought that Zuma has a silver bullet, just because he's in the ward, he lives in the ward, and he's now the president of the country, and we see him on TV almost every day. Well, we'll win the ward. The evidence proves to the contrary. We also lost the Inkandla municipality. It's his municipality. We lost it. So I don't want colleagues to think to attribute the victory and to any single person within the ANC. It's a mistake. When we lost this province in 1994, President Zuma was our premier candidate. Yeah, was the chair and the premier candidate. Was a premier candidate at the time, in this province. So it's not like Zuma equals win, and it means that we are not giving sufficient attention to our own, tools of analysis to understand what was behind the victories. The victory in, well, it's not a victory per se. I mean, you have to look at the statistics. And yes, in KZN we improved. Why we improved? And there are things we did in KZN. And for example, in the first 10 years when the IFP was in government, people remember very little of what the ANC did in that period, but more of what the 4 MECs that the ANC had were actually doing. Zweli, building clinics, building, all over. Spoondebele, building roads, and they can point at what those roads, how those roads have actually changed their lives on the ground. Sbu says to me, Cyril, if I had a budget and I have to do 2 roads, one in an IFP area and one in the ANC area, I would start with the one in an IFP area. You know? And indeed that paid dividends, all right? And we also had MEC Makai, you know, for housing. You know, look at the things he did, and within the short period that he served in the department. We also had economic development in the under Comrade Jesat at the time. So I'm saying history, people will remember more what the ANC delivered than what the IFP delivered, with all the ministries that it controlled at the time. I'm sure you bear testimony to that. So don't look at that and think, man, it didn't count that much, and only that the Zuma who took us, catapulted us to where we are, it would be wrong to conclude that way. And two, the comrades were trying to unpack faction. You know, you look on that, it's not true that factions date back from 1993. It's not possible. Yes, there was contest. We were a democratic organization. We practice democracy internally. There's contest. But the good thing, you know, SBU will win. Will contest with Zweli and win. But what SBU will not do is to purge those who supported Zweli. The moment you start to do that, you're actually entrenching. You're actually entrenching a faction. You know, because you say, look, you did not support me, so I will replace you with people who supported me. Immediately, you are creating a divide between the people. You know, and so people, you spoke about triumphalism, you know, and said you warned some of us that we must not be triumphalistic and we must not purge people. But what happened, it's something else, you know, there's purging and all of that and so forth. And in doing that, you are creating a permanent division within your own sections. So I think I mean the PIC, the provincial interim structure. We are actually starting to acknowledge those wrongs. We shouldn't have gone that route. It was wrong, you know, and so then that's how when people say there's faction, and now before this I would say no, we don't have factions, but now I can say yes, there are factions, you know, precisely because of the point that I've just raised, and the problem, the factions are now starting to, you know, affect the ANC support. I mean, you look at how many wards by elections we have lost since 2016, you know, and we also lost municipalities, you know, in 2016. Indumeni is one of them. There are quite a number of these. We also lost the municipality in Mutu. Yes, it was a coalition thing, but we were running the municipality. And nothing should have stopped us from turning things around and actually leading the municipality alone. But we lost that momentum. So I'm saying, again, it's because of the challenges that I've just spoken about. Actually, I'm admitting that there are challenges. And you went on down the ideological line, and in the process overlooked the issues that the colleagues were actually talking about, you know. And it's fine, talk ideology is fine, but what the colleagues are actually saying is, what has gone wrong so wrong that we see the signs that we are seeing as a province. Ideologically, in our case, it's difficult to talk ideology in KZN in isolation. You see, it's not difficult. But here, the topic was KZN, and then said yes, and these are the challenges that we are seeing. And there's another point that colleagues raised, that the KZN is now starting to redefine itself outside the national politics. See, that's not my take. That's not my take on because you see, you know, colleagues, if you look at how people, you know, how factions sustain themselves, you know, a faction usually would have an anchor, you know, an anchor usually at a national level, you know, and it starts to identify who it must anchor its position on, you know, so that it has a view, you know, at a national level, you know, and all what, you know, what will help the ANC is for those people in the leadership, in the top six, to start to distance themselves from from all this nonsense and say not in my name. I think Titi is doing very well. He's actually projecting himself as a leader who is not, you know, equal to the problems that the ANC is actually facing. We want to see a lot of that from Comrade Ace. You know, the statement he made when he was here in KZN, you know, it was unfortunate. It was unfortunate, you know, and when he was taken head on by the likes of Pegicele and others, now we said, wait a minute, we should all be running to him when there are problems. Now, if he is the center of the problems, then who is it going to run to? You know, so as the Secretary General, you are a chief administrator of a political party, you know, and you must immediately rise above all this and become a father, stroke mother of everyone else, because it is to you that when there are challenges, people are going to run. So I think it was a mistake. We want to see, and Comrade Cyril is really trying very hard. I mean, he had to cut his trip short. You know, he was away in London, but he's back now because of the challenges in Mafeking, in Northwest. You know, he had to come so that he's part of finding the solutions in this province. You know, this renewal, this unity, this social cohesion, and all of that. They realize that those are important things that the ANC must do, because they are about us and no one else. And then the last 2 points, colleagues, and I agree with comrades who say, look, the caliber of our leaders, it's the quality. I think we need to do something about the quality of our own leaders. I agree, and you see, it's well, I'm not going to talk about this. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. So, and that we now appear as if we are anti. I mean, the intelligence has no room, you know, as in the ANC, you know. And I mean, if you look at how the ANC was founded, who were the founding blocks of the African National Congress. Intellectuals. Yeah, intellectuals, you know. And, in 1994, during the negotiations, you see, you looked at the ANC leadership. You know, you look at it and you'll be convinced that indeed in the ANC there is a future. You know, and these people are equal to replacing the de Klerk regime. I mean, you could count. You know, the really powerful individuals within the ANC. You know, and now comrades are saying, where are those people? You know, I mean, you even mentioned the names of some of them. You know, and it's the same cry that the veterans are actually making.
101.
Yeah, 101. So I'm making the same cry. They even suggested a national conference to say, man, please, can you delay? No, they didn't want us to delay the conference. They thought, let's have the national consultative conference before the national conference. When some of us were actually ridiculing them, you know, some of us, we said, no, let us listen to them, because we knew that what they were saying resonated with the views, some of which have actually been expressed in this meeting. And the very last point, colleagues, is the political killings. That is my last point, because you touched on that one in the province, of course, in Natal. You know, I said in our meeting we had a meeting, you'll call it a bilateral meeting. I don't know why the ANC must have a bilateral, you know, ANC meeting with the ANC. So we had a bilateral just to discuss, you know, how we must deal with the challenges, the problems that are besetting the ANC, you know, the healing process and all of that. And we said, I think the problem now, we are beginning to pick up, I think some of you mentioned this point, is the intersection between power and money, you know, and it's even worse that there's no formal requirements needed, you see, and that if we are not careful, and we will become second to the politics, in other words, politics that sits at the intersection of power and money. And if we are not careful, is that very soon politics will become second to the taxi industry, you know, and you know the challenges that are there. And it's not entirely true that we are stopping, you know, the middle class or the intelligentsia from speaking truth to power. It's fear that you might be blacklisted from getting work with government. I mean, you don't talk. It's fear that we might not appoint you to positions in government. You know, it's not so much that we are being muzzled. You know, and somebody has said, don't, you know, criticize us. Some of you have just, you know, you've given up your own space. You've given up your own space, and you have surrendered it, you know, for the reasons known to you. We know the reasons. We know the reasons. We know, you know. So, some of you, and there are cases that they will not take. You know, I mean, you're a lawyer. There's a case you will not take for fear that you may actually antagonize
The other fiction.
You may categorize the other fiction. You see, there you are. There you are. In other words, it's a self-imposed, in some cases, a self-imposed what?
Censorship.
Censorship. That's a word. I would like to rest at that. Basically, I was actually saying I acknowledge every presentation colleagues made, but I felt that I should just comment on some of the things that colleagues made. It was a wonderful evening, and I took note of everything, and that was said this morning, and I will share some of these with my colleagues. Maybe last point, maybe it's for your own information. On Monday, the PIC was appointed was appointed by the National Executive Committee that met on the 23rd of January, and that was after they suspended the PEC, and the Constitution says if the structure is suspended,